Welcome back, Deep Divers. Today we're tackling a topic I think a lot of us struggle with,
Hmm.
how to wrestle back some of our time and attention from.
The ever-present lure of the internet?
Yeah, exactly, all those social media sites and just the constant stream of information and entertainment.
The infotainment vortex.
That's it, the infotainment vortex.
Yeah.
We're going deep on this one with Cal Newport's deep work,
Specifically, his rule number 3, quit social media.
which might sound a bit extreme to some people,
It does have a certain shock value.
but we're not saying you have to go full-on digital hermit, right?
No, not at all. The idea is to be more intentional, more like a craftsman with their tools.
Okay, I like that analogy, the craftsman approach.
Yeah.
So how would a craftsman decide which tools to use?
Well, they wouldn't just buy every gadget at the hardware store, right?
Definitely not. They'd be thinking about what they're actually trying to build. What's the project?
Exactly. And which tools are essential for that specific project and which ones would just.
Get in the way or be a distraction.
Right. And maybe even end up costing more in the long run.
I see. So it's about being really selective and thoughtful about our digital tools.
And making sure they're actually serving us, not the other way around.
Okay. So let's be real. I think a lot of us feel that tug of war between wanting to be connected.
And feeling overwhelmed by it all.
Exactly. Like we all know that feeling of being constantly distracted, right? Like checking our phones a million times a day.
And that feeling you get when you finally put it down, like, ugh, what did I even accomplish?
It's like our brains are getting fragmented.
Yeah.
We can't focus for more than 5 minutes without.
Ping, another notification.
Yeah. It reminds me of Baratunde Thurston, the most connected man in the world.
Oh, yeah, I remember him. He was like a walking embodiment of the always-on culture.
Totally.
Yeah.
And even HE got to a point where he was just completely burnt out, fried from all the hyperconnectivity.
He did something pretty radical about it.
He did. A 25-day internet sabbatical. No social media, no email, no internet, period.
Cold turkey, wow.
I know, right? And the thing is, he noticed a huge difference, like almost immediately.
What kind of difference?
Well, he was less stressed, more present. He even started talking to strangers more.
That's amazing. So just unplugging for a bit can really make a difference.
It seems like it. And it kind of shows that we get stuck in this false choice, like either we're totally off the grid or we're drowning in notifications.
Right, that it's all or nothing. But there has to be a middle ground.
That's where Cal Newport's craftsman approach comes in. It's about being deliberate about which digital tools we let into our lives.
And how we use them.
Yeah. Like that farmer in the book, Forrest Pritchard. He needed hay for his farm.
Seems like a no-brainer to buy a hay baller, right?
You'd think so. But he really thought it through, not just the upfront cost of the baller, but also,
It would cost him in terms of time and energy.
exactly, time he could be spending on other things that were more important to his overall goals for the farm.
So it was about looking at the bigger picture.
And he realized that buying the hay, even though it seemed more expensive at first, actually freed him up to focus on.
The things that really mattered for the health of his farm.
Exactly. And it's the same with our digital tools.
Yeah.
It's not just about whether a tool is useful in some abstract way, but
Whether it's actually helping us achieve our goals, our vision of
have a good life, right?
Exactly.
So how do we actually put this into practice? How do we figure out which tools are essential and which ones we can ditch?
Well, Cal Newport lays out 3 strategies that we'll get into.
Okay, let's hear them.
The first is something called the law of the vital few.
Okay, that sounds intriguing.
It's also known as the 80-20 rule.
Oh, I've heard of that. So how does that apply here?
Well, the idea is that 80% of our results come from just 20% of our efforts.
So it's about identifying those key activities, the ones that really move the needle, right?
Exactly. And then ruthlessly prioritizing those and letting go of the rest, the stuff that's not really contributing.
Like those time-wasting tasks that just clutter up our day.
Exactly. So, for example, you think about really successful authors, people like Malcolm Gladwell, Michael Lewis, George Packer.
Okay, yeah, I see where you're going with this.
Have you ever seen them on Twitter?
Now that you mention it, I don't think so. But you'd think they'd need social media, right? To promote their books and everything?
You'd think so. But they've achieved phenomenal success without it. Their work demands deep focus, immersion, and Twitter, even with its potential benefits, would likely be a distraction from the core activities that make them successful.
Researching, writing, thinking deeply.
Exactly. So they've made a conscious choice to focus on those vital few activities that really matter for their craft.
And it's not just about writing. I mean, whatever your field is, there are probably a few key activities that drive most of your success.
And those are the ones you want to protect to make sure you're giving them your best time and energy.
So how do we figure out what those vital activities are in our own lives? I mean, it's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day and lose sight of the bigger picture.
Absolutely. That's where the next strategy comes in, something Cal Newport calls the 30-day social media fast.
A fast, like no social media for a whole month.
That's the idea. It's like hitting the pause button on your digital life for a bit just to see what happens.
I can see how that would be a little scary for some people, like going cold turkey.
It can be, but it's also a chance to gain some valuable insights into how social media is actually affecting you.
Okay, so what are the rules?
No formal deactivation, no announcements, just quietly step away for 30 days. And then after that 30-day period, you ask yourself two crucial questions.
Let me guess. Is the first one, did I actually miss it?
Close. It's, would the last 30 days have been notably better if I had been able to use this service?
Okay, that's a really good question. And the second one?
Did people actually care that I wasn't using it?
Wow, those are some tough questions. And I bet the answers can be pretty surprising.
They often are. You might realize that you didn't miss it as much as you thought you would.
Or that nobody even noticed you were gone.
And that can be really liberating because it shows you that...
Maybe social media wasn't as essential to your life as you thought it was.
Exactly. And it opens up the possibility of using it more intentionally, or maybe even letting it go entirely. But we'll talk more about that in the next part of our deep dive.
I'm definitely looking forward to that. This is some seriously thought-provoking stuff. So for our listeners out there, if you're feeling that pull between connection and overwhelm, we're just getting started on this journey of reclaiming our time and attention.
And remember, it's not about deprivation, it's about empowerment. It's about making conscious choices about how we want to engage with the digital world.
So stay tuned, because in the next part, we'll dive deeper into those strategies for breaking free from the infotainment vortex and reclaiming your focus.
And ultimately, designing a life that feels more intentional, both online and offline.
Until then, happy deep working.
Which can be a really powerful realization, you know, to see that maybe those platforms weren't as vital to our happiness as we thought.
Yeah, it's like they were taking up all this space in our minds without actually adding much value.
It's like that illusion of importance that social media creates, you know? You get caught up in the likes and the comments.
And it's easy to mistake that for real connection, for actually building something meaningful.
It's like we're all performing for this invisible audience, trying to prove our worth in this digital popularity contest.
And it can be so addictive, that constant stream of validation, even if it's superficial.
It preys on our innate desire for connection, you know, our need to feel seen and heard.
But it can also distract us from the deeper, more fulfilling connections we could be making offline.
The kind of connections that actually nourish our souls, not just our egos.
So by stepping away from social media, even for a short time, we can gain a clearer perspective on its role in our lives.
And maybe start to question whether it's actually serving our best interests.
Because let's be honest, a lot of us spend way more time on social media than we'd like to admit.
It's so easy to get sucked into that endless scroll, you know? 1 minute you're checking a notification and the next hour's gone.
And it's not just social media, it's all those infotainment sites, the news feeds, the clickbait headlines.
Designed to keep us hooked, to keep us coming back for more.
And it's exhausting.
It really is. And it leaves us feeling drained and depleted with no energy left for the things that truly matter.
Okay, so we've talked about the problem, the addictive nature of these digital distractions, the illusion of importance they create. But what's the solution? How do we break free from this cycle?
Well, Cal Newport offers a few strategies for reclaiming our time and attention. And the first one, as we mentioned earlier, is the law of the vital few.
The 80-20 rule, right?
Exactly. It's about identifying those 20% of activities that drive 80% of our results, both in our work and our personal lives.
So it's about focusing on the things that really move the needle, the things that make the biggest difference.
But ruthlessly cutting out the rest, the 80% of activities that are just taking up time and energy without really contributing much.
So how do we actually do that? How do we figure out what those vital few activities are?
It starts with getting clear on your goals, both professional and personal. What do you truly want to achieve? What kind of person do you want to be?
So it's not just about being more productive, it's about aligning our actions with our values.
Exactly. Once you have a clear sense of your goals, you can start to identify the activities that are most essential for achieving them. For example, if your goal is to write a book, those vital few activities might include
researching, writing, outlining, maybe getting feedback from beta readers.
Right. Those are the activities that will actually move you closer to your goal of finishing that book.
And everything else, like checking email constantly, or scrolling through social media would be considered.
Distractions, things that are taking you away from your core focus.
Okay, so once we've identified those vital few activities, how do we actually prioritize them? I mean, it's easy to say, I'm going to focus on this, but then life gets in the way, and we get pulled back into old habits.
It definitely takes discipline and effort, but one helpful strategy is to schedule those vital few activities into your day, just like you would schedule a meeting or an appointment.
So it's about treating those activities with the same level of importance as any other commitment.
Exactly. And by blocking out that time in your calendar, you're sending a signal to yourself and to others that this time is sacred, it's non-negotiable.
It's like creating a protective bubble around that time so you can fully focus on the task at hand.
And by doing that consistently, you'll start to build momentum and you'll be amazed at how much you can accomplish.
This whole idea of being intentional with our time really resonates with me. It's so easy to just drift through the day, reacting to whatever comes our way, and then wondering where all the time went,
It's like we're on autopilot, letting external forces dictate our actions.
instead of being the captain of our own ship, choosing our course and steering towards our desired destination.
Exactly. And that's what Cal Newport is inviting us to do, to become more conscious, more deliberate about how we spend our time and energy.
So we've talked about the importance of identifying our vital few activities, but how do we actually know which tools are helping us and which ones are hindering us? I mean, it's not always obvious.
That's where that 30-day social media fast can be really helpful.
Okay, remind me again how that works.
It's pretty simple.
Yep.
You completely abstain from social media for 30 days. No checking your feeds, no posting, no liking, no commenting. It's a complete break.
I can imagine that being pretty tough for some people, especially those of us who are used to being constantly connected.
It can be a challenge, for sure, but it's also an opportunity to gain some valuable insights into how social media is actually affecting you.
So it's like a scientific experiment where we're removing the variable of social media to see what happens.
Exactly. And by paying close attention to how you feel during those 30 days, you'll start to notice patterns and insights that you might not have been aware of before.
Like maybe you're sleeping better, or you have more energy, or you're more present in your interactions with others.
Or maybe you're feeling anxious and restless, and you realize just how much you rely on social media for validation and connection.
So it's about gathering data, about becoming more aware of our own habits and behaviors.
And then using that data to make more informed choices about how we want to engage with social media moving forward.
Because it's not about demonizing social media, or any other digital tool for that matter.
It's about using them consciously and intentionally in a way that serves our goals and enhances our lives.
And sometimes that might mean taking a break or even letting go of a tool altogether.
Exactly. It's about being the master of our tools, not the other way around.
Okay, so we've talked about the law of the vital few and the 30-day social media fast. What's the third strategy for reclaiming our time and attention?
Well, it might seem counterintuitive, but it's about planning our leisure time.
Planning our leisure time. Isn't that an oxymoron? I thought leisure time was supposed to be about spontaneity and relaxation.
You'd think so, wouldn't you? But the problem is that our leisure time often gets filled with low-quality activities, things that don't really nourish our souls or bring us lasting joy.
Like mindless scrolling, binge-watching TV shows, or just zoning out in front of the computer.
Exactly. And while those activities might provide a temporary escape, they don't leave us feeling truly refreshed and recharged.
So what's the alternative?
It's about being more intentional about how we spend our leisure time. Choosing activities that align with our values and goals, things that bring us a sense of fulfillment and joy.
So instead of just defaulting to whatever's easiest or most readily available, we're actually making a conscious choice about how we want to spend our free time.
Exactly. And this might involve planning ahead, scheduling those activities into our week, just like we would schedule any other important appointment.
Because if we don't plan for it, it's easy for leisure time to just slip away, to get filled with those low-quality activities that leave us feeling drained and depleted.
Right. It's like that saying, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And that applies to our leisure time just as much as it does to our work time.
So what are some examples of high-quality leisure activities?
Well, it really depends on your individual interests and passions, but some examples might include
Spending time in nature, pursuing creative hobbies, reading books, connecting with loved ones?
Exactly. The key is to choose activities that engage you on a deeper level, that challenge you and make you feel alive.
Activities that leave you feeling refreshed and energized, not drained and depleted.
Right. It's about treating our leisure time with the same level of care and intention that we give to our work time.
Because ultimately, our leisure time is just as valuable, if not more so.
It's the time when we can recharge our batteries, cultivate new skills, and connect with the things that bring us joy.
And by investing in those high-quality leisure activities, we're actually investing in our overall well-being.
And that, in turn, makes us more productive and engaged in all areas of our lives.
So it's a win-win situation. We get to enjoy our leisure time more, and we also become more effective in our work.
Exactly. It's about creating a life that feels balanced and fulfilling, both online and offline. It really is about being mindful, isn't it? About how we use those tools and what we're getting out of them.
Yeah, and it's about remembering that we have a choice. We don't have to be slaves to the algorithm.
We can choose to step off the hamster wheel and create a more intentional digital experience for ourselves.
So let's recap those 3 strategies we've been talking about. First, we have the law of the vital few.
Focusing on the 20% of activities that drive 80% of our results.
Right. And then there's the 30-day social media fast.
A chance to experiment and see what happens when we take a break from those platforms.
And finally, planning our leisure time.
Which is about choosing high-quality activities that nourish our souls and leave us feeling refreshed.
So it's really a holistic approach, isn't it? It's about being intentional with our time and energy, both online and offline.
Exactly. It's about creating a life that feels balanced and fulfilling, a life where we're in control of our attention, not the other way around.
And I think that's a really empowering message, you know, that we have the power to shape our digital experience, to make it work for us, not against us.
It's about taking back our agency, becoming the architects of our own attention.
I love that, the architects of our own attention. So for our listeners out there who are feeling overwhelmed by the digital world, who are feeling like they're constantly being pulled in a million different directions, remember this. You have a choice.
You can choose to step off the hamster wheel to create a more intentional digital experience for yourself.
And it starts with small steps, You don't have to do everything at once.
Experiment, see what works for you. There's no one-size-fits-all solution.
Exactly. It's about finding what feels good, what helps you create a life that feels more aligned with your values and goals.
And remember, you're not alone in this journey. We're all in this together, figuring it out as we go.
That's so true. And we're here to support you along the way. So, until next time, keep diving deep, keep exploring, and keep reclaiming your time and attention.
And remember, the most important work you'll ever do is the work you do on yourself.
Beautifully said. Happy deep working, everyone.